Welcome to the Business Blox podcast. I'm Chris Manser.
Dale from Tax for You, aka Business Blox, aka Little Royals.
What do you got for us?
The announcement of Job Seeker. What's the new one? Seeker?
JobMaker.
JobMaker, that's the one. That is the new and improved program. So there were a couple announcements on JobKeeper. They are keeping JobKeeper, or it looks like they're going to keep JobKeeper all the way through to September. They said that you need to use the money wisely, much like what we said. So I think they've been watching the podcast, and that there will be more targeted spending that will come, and that sort of leads into the JobMaker program. The early announcements, so there was the Prime Minister came on the TV today, and he said that it's going to be jobs focused. So they're bringing, one point I thought was interesting, he says they're trying to bring unions and businesses together because they need businesses to survive, which is sort of an indication that they want people to negotiate better or lower wage conditions for most people, just in order to get the most amount of jobs through to the most amount of people. He did have one small dig at the union, sort of saying that they should come to the party. There was also announcements regarding education, but not large institutions, smaller skilled-based learning programs, which he says that was going to be the next reason, the next place the money was going to go. He also said that the money wasn't going to be spent ineffectively. They've learnt from their mistakes previously, and they're going to try and make things more effective, in that the programs that do get rolled out need to be done for jobs shortages, and somehow this is all going to tie together with the single touch payroll system. So it was a nothing announcement, in the fact that there was no concrete dollars that was announced. It was just an indication that we need to start working together. He didn't want to weigh in to the negotiations pool on saying what they wanted the outcomes to be. He said that should be something that the employees and the employers work out together. They were looking to try and reduce legal tape around the way that the business is done, so make things easier to get through, quicker, and all that sort of stuff. But as far as actual detail, not a lot, nothing really. Just sir, yes, sir. It was a good speech. I enjoyed it. I thought it was it did sort of pull the troops together. So, it was good from that, but no facts, no figures, no dollars. Did we talk about interest-free loans in the last one?
No, we haven't spoken about interest-free loans.
There's been a further tightening of borrowing policies that's going to get rolled out by the banks. Not announced by the RBA, but the central governing body of the banks, that they need to reduce their exposure to interest-only loans. Some figures that I saw kicked around was that there's about 30% of all loans are interest-free loans. So they're going to start to kick to principal and interest when they run out on their term, because they won't be renewed into a new arrangement. And most of those arrangements are usually 12-month arrangements or around about that. So they're not a long-term borrowing option. That's going to mean that there's going to be a bunch of people who are going to have repayments almost double. So I think it's a 40-odd% increase. 40%? Yeah, so it's almost double. So it's about an 80% increase in the amount that you've got to pay towards your loan every month, week, fortnight, whatever you do. So that's going to be interesting in how that rolls through the system and the pressure that it puts on people. There has been one large closure. It was the car company. Who am I thinking about? Hertz. So Hertz has put their hand up, a very old company, been around for a lot of years, and said that they've had enough. So I think it's starting to, yeah, things are starting to bite at the moment, and it's probably going to be one of many. The government say to everyone, we need to negotiate, both employees and employers. It's about working together. These are his actual words: working together from what's best for the business, because that will that means that everyone has a job. Now, skeptics are going to say Liberal government pushing it through for the big business, but I do feel that he is trying to push it through to get the best for everybody.
Yeah. Well, if the businesses survive, there's jobs and there's no need for subsidies to continue or handouts from the government.
Won't continue. So, big point was that we shouldn't make intergenerational debt that people will have to pay back in years to come, and that is sort of, I think, his indication saying we're not going to spend the $60 billion that appeared from nowhere with the major accounting error. So that was probably another thing we should touch on, is that there was a major miscalculation with JobKeeper. Yeah. So they almost doubled the estimated amount of people that were going to go into JobKeeper. So rather than being a $130 billion program, it's now dropped down to a $70 billion program.
Is that cash going to stay in the bank? The 60 billion or?
All borrowed is what he said today. He goes, every cent of the 70 billion that we're spending at the moment is all borrowed. So it's not ours to spend, was the indication.
Can you explain quickly what borrowing means, that we are borrowing this money from the future?
Okay, as I understand it, what the government do is they issue bonds, and through that issuing bonds, they sell that to people. So people buy the bonds and give the money to the government, but the government then have to pay the value of the bonds back, so they can do a bond buyback. So it's like selling shares in a company. That interest rate is governed by the Reserve Bank, and that's why the Reserve Bank interest rate is so important. But then it gets hairy, and for some reason the Reserve Bank are buying government bonds, and then I just get lost on the whole deal. So, but effectively, what's happening is that the government doesn't have the money now, so that they're selling off treasury bonds to businesses, to whoever wants to buy them, in order to get the money to pay the bills. I think that's when the Reserve Bank stepped in, saying we know that there may be a short-term glut in the ability to sell the bonds, so we'll step up and front the money. But then begs the question, where did that money come from? So it's a strange world where I haven't looked a huge amount into it. So what that would mean in an economy point of view, it would mean that we would need to find some mechanism of paying that back. So we would either need to reduce spending in the future or increase taxing, so increase income. So we've got no public assets to sell anymore, I don't think. So we've sold off Telstra, the electrical companies and everything like that. That seemed to have been where we got a lot of the big payoffs in the past. Mining boom was another sort of way that we were able to balance the books quite well for a number of years, but none of that is going to continue into the future. So we're looking at, as in a country, we're looking at decreased revenue. So the government is looking at decreased revenue. The imports are looking at decreased revenue. China is playing games at the moment, so they are now putting import tariffs on barley and coal, I believe. They didn't put a tariff on the coal, but they instructed state-owned coal power plants not to buy Australian coal. So they should be two pretty big hits. They're billion-dollar hits to the export market. Australian meat was also targeted. So all that sort of says that there's going to be less money being taxed in Australia from overseas sources, leading to a position where we won't be able to pay back that debt in the short term, and we're probably going to have to increase the debt in the short term just to pay the bills. So that's why they're sort of saying we're not going to spend that additional 60 billion.
And looking close, also tying into the future and more on an individual level, the super guarantee have had a big uptake. A number of people have taken on the opportunity to withdraw the 10,000 has been younger people. So what are your thoughts on how that's going to affect things down the track, or do you think it's been helpful for people?
If you're pulling the money out to pay your bills, it's not helpful, but it is helpful to survive. So that's probably a bad situation to be in. I think the long-term effect of you pulling out 10,000 out of your super now is close to, I think it's about 300,000 once you retire. So that means it could even be more. I'm not quite sure, but it's a significant amount of money, minimum of about 300,000. So you're going to have effectively, a house, a very cheap house in a lower area, in your investment on retirement. So yeah, if people are pulling the money out just to pay the bills, then I understand it. But if you're pulling the money out to buy a car or to spend it on something that's not essential, I don't think it's a good move. Some people have been pulling it out to save up deposits for houses. Now, I don't think that's actually within the rules. I have heard of that being done. It won't affect the overall super industry. I don't think they're going to have any problems cash flow wise. They did say that they had the cash excesses there. But yeah, I think super's a thing. I mean, super's a whole issue that it's very neglected in Australia, considering it's such a large investment. I mean, you wouldn't pay 10% of your income to a company and then never look at it if it was any other circumstances. So super as a whole is poorly managed. I think there should be education around people who look at their super. They're looking at what they've got in their super. We had a conversation with somebody a couple of weeks ago. They were only like 28. They were looking to sort of see if they could put more money into super, and $100 a week extra into super, it basically doubled their super on retirement, which took them from about 600 to up to about $1 million, I believe, just sort of off the top of my head. So with super, once you get to a large balance, it's the earnings that's where you get most of the growth from. If you're looking to put money into super to grow and you don't get any earnings, you're never really going to get a decent value. And you've got to get your fund up to a level of, if you want to live comfortably, realistically talking about sort of 600 bare minimum, and you're sort of living at a okay level. But if you can get it up to $1 million, you could probably earn somewhere between 60 to 70,000 quite comfortably on your retirement, which is where you want to be. You don't want to be sort of working anything under that. So big issue in itself. I think, depending on what people use the money for, but I hope if they have pulled the money out that they then can work to get the money back in once it's once this is all over.
And that's what it was designed for. The government said that if you have lost your job or reduced hours, it's to keep you going and keep the bills paid, not to invest in new toys or whatever, video games, etc., and things like that.
Crypto, yeah. So I think half the problem is that I honestly think that the funding that's been given out has been an overreaction in a lot of instances.
Yeah. So a few things that I've saw during the week, more across the ditch over in America, was some interesting innovations and interesting situations coming up around this COVID period. Where, first off, did you watch the series Some Good News? There's a YouTube series put together by...
No. I did hear about it though, yeah, and it was getting a lot of coverage by a lot of people because of
Yeah, so
it
it was
actually presented
really
good news. Was that
popular,
what it was
and
all
it was
about?
presented by John Krasinski, which is an actor in The Office and has been on a few movies. And he just pretty much crowdsourced
Yeah.
all the good news and creative things that people had done while they were in lockdown. And he presented it in a YouTube
Mm.
video that would run like a news segment for about 20 minutes, and raised millions of dollars for nurses, for food charities in the US.
So how did he sell the? Is it just a donation?
A
Is that
couple
what it
of the
was?
things, he got Pepsi to come on and sponsor. They threw $1 million into
Yeah.
to
Okay.
whatever that segment was, and he then, towards the end of the series, had created an online shop for the creators that
Yeah.
had come up with different ideas throughout COVID to sell their products. So he exposed a lot of creative people that wouldn't have necessarily been seen. And this video was
Yeah.
getting 8-10 million views per week. And it went for
Yeah.
8 weeks. It ran its course as the restrictions and lockdowns have improved and the virus has come under control. He sort of ended the show, and now it's come out that it's been bought by a network commercial company for an undisclosed amount of
Yeah.
money. And it seems to be, there's an uproar around if it was the right thing to do. He's sold out, as they say. So what do you think about that? No, it hasn't been disclosed.
Do
It
we
would be
know
in the
how much?
millions. There was apparently a huge bidding war for the rights to it. I don't even think he's actually going to be on the show. So it's, yeah. So it's
Ah,
more around the naming
really?
and all that sort of thing. But what are your thoughts on selling out like that?
How is that selling out? That's probably where I'd be. So if I developed a show that helped people, okay, Casey Neistat was probably probably who I'm talking to. The boomers of the world won't understand who I'm talking about, but yeah. So he's a guy who had a following on YouTube and sold out to CBS or one of the big news companies and sold everything to them to try and build a news service that focused on localized news. It was a complete failure. He got $20 million, I think, for it. The backstory of it was he was able to pay out a lot of people that invested in him, which might not be the case in this one, but you never know. So you really got to look at sort of where is the money going? It's probably going. It might not be going to one person. It might be going to a group of people. It may put a lot of people who are on the fringes of a job into a full-time position, which was another thing that they sort of pulled out. So the economic wise of it, I mean, it sort of makes a little bit of sense there. You probably have a program that was not it wasn't this drama program or it wasn't a gossip program. It was a positive program that's getting good air, so it's probably good from that point of view. But is he selling out? Is he selling out? Well,
Yeah.
what does he
So
do?
this
He's an
was
actor.
a small project, and people have argued that it was put out there as good news and free of charge. That
Is it still going to be free though?
Well, it's just going to be on TV, and he was doing it out of the goodness of your heart. I think that's their argument. It was goodness of your heart, and then now you're getting a check at the end, and were you trying to get a check the whole way through? Which I think is pretty disappointing, because the amount of money he's raised for charities, it just doesn't even compare.
It's cancel culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. You do something wrong, you get your life ruined. I don't see the problem. I don't see where the downside is. A big company gave some money to I don't know how rich he is, but I doubt he's a multi-hundred millionaire. He doesn't have a huge amount of money. It's a positive project. It's now a positive project, or I'd hope so. That if it continues to be the same thing, yeah, I think it's a good thing. It yeah, and then it encourages other people to sort of get into that space as well, to sort of think about what can I do, that helps. It's just a shame that people, yeah, look that way. I see no problems with it, but I am strongly a capitalist, not a
Okay. Well, then
communist.
you'll probably like this next story around Pasquale's. I think I've said that right.
Pasquale's.
Pasquale's Pizza and Wings, a new virtual company that was created during the lockdown because popular franchise Chuck E. Cheese, which Australians may not know, is a restaurant that sells pizza, but it also is a kids' playtime, has video games, ball pits, and all those fun stuff for kids. So it'd sell average pizza, and the kids would have a ball in the ball pit. But now they've managed to create another company and sell pizzas and wings out of their kitchens that are currently closed with the virus, and they're selling it under a different name. So they have claimed that the ingredients are premium and the pizzas are different, but people question that if there's no difference in the quality. They're just leveraging a boutique brand.
I think that's where the world's heading. Who's the guy? The guy who started Uber. One of the Uber founders has gone out on his own and started a company that offers communal kitchen arrangements, which sort of focuses on the Uber Eats delivery type scene. Um, yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more of it. It's just rebranding. It's not a new thing. I think probably the way that they did it may have been a bit more subversive, but it happens all the time. Okay, take the example of Target and Kmart. Was it Kmart? Could have been Big W, one of the two. Owned by the same company, basically do the same thing. Now that Target's closed down, they're rebranding everything to Big W. It's the same thing. I think it's good that people have got creative in this sort of environment. It keeps people working. It kept the doors open. It's pizza. People need to eat pizza. Yeah, I think it's very creative. We've seen a lot of people try with the Zoom training and the Zoom, dance classes and the Zoom sort of gyms. It hasn't gone down too well. I don't think I think people really go for the interactions, which is what it seems. You take that away from it and it hasn't, yeah, it doesn't go really well, but I applaud the effort and the ingenuity, but yeah, I don't know, the naming. So apparently Pasquale is one of their characters because they got like 4 characters that perform. So, they did leave hints in there. It wasn't totally hidden, but yeah, I think it's not a bad idea. I think they've done well. Hats off to them.
It shows also the barrier entry is zero. It's
Pretty
simply
much.
creating a logo and a brand,
Pricing.
and you're into the market.
Yeah, I think the issue you've got is people will try a lot with pricing. Um, yeah, it's very easy to sort of to
And
sell
just
something
thinking
and get it
about Target
going.
and Kmart for a minute, it's interesting that we are like the Kmart stores are surviving and flourishing when they're just mass produced. The whole model is mass produced now. I think I don't know if it's Indonesia or China, and at that low price, quality's reasonable, but it is just simply, it's not really a retail store. It's a mass produced all you can get.
They did change up their pricing, I would say 2 to 3 years ago. No, probably not even that. So they really they tried to provide a middle ground sort of um, a middle ground experience, so to speak. So it's a mid-range pricing, but then they just scrapped it. So once the internet and the online shopping really kicked off, they just went as cheap as they can. Sort of, it got a lot plainer in the things that they sold. They reduced the range and just did a lot more bulk. So it became a very, very cheap store, which seems to still get a lot of the sales. So, it is a race to the bottom, which is the scariest thing, and Amazon is probably the best example of that. They were always the cheapest. They don't add a lot of margin to what they do. I think it's like 1 or 2% margin. Might be that low, but it's a very, very low margin that they add on to the thing of every product. And look how big the business is there. Biggest company in the world. So if you're the cheapest, you will get a lot of the work. Trying to differentiate yourself based on quality or other things like that certainly limits the markets that you can sort of move into. So it's sort of, it's a very niche sort of area. So yeah, it's branding. It works wonders. Pasquale's, try it out. But yeah, I don't know. I think, I hope we see a lot more, I think we'll see a lot more ingenuity come out of these next, maybe out of this next, out of this crisis, sorry. It's probably the biggest crisis that we've dealt with in the information age, I would say. So, if you look at how Uber changed the world and the way sort of taxi services operated, it was just sort of forced onto everyone. Pasquale's sort of pulled something out of the box. You might see a few more sort of polar shifts in the way that industries work in order to survive. And sometimes it's not a bad thing. I don't know, how do you feel about Uber? Yeah,
Terrible.
Good or bad?
The main reason, after reading stories of when they first started, they moved into India, and they were trying to promote themselves, and they said, we'll give you a loan to get a car so you can become driving, and you'll be guaranteed X amount of dollars of revenue each month. And what they found is that was all good until everyone was an Uber driver and there wasn't the money to go around. So they put all these people into car loans that weren't making any money. So there's a lot of stories like that, but they have changed the industry at the end of the day. I don't race to use them, but then I don't race to use taxis either.
No, I don't think it's a lot more convenient, and that was the thing that they sold, was a much more convenient experience. I mean, I remember the days when you used to wait 40 minutes to 2 hours for a taxi. And you can get that down to 5 minutes. You can smash through government regulation to get there, because taxis were protected by the government for years and years and years, and no one ever thought to challenge them. And then this company just rocks up and goes, hey, we're coming in. You can either like it or lump it. It's progress. Is it a good thing?
It's here.
I don't know.
And quality of the
machine
service
will move
did
forward.
improve.
Yeah, it's here.
The company's one thing, but their service has improved. Riding in transport. So there's always going to be trade-offs.
But I've always shunned global corporations. I was always hoping that there'd be a move back to more of a localized, community-based way of doing business. But it seems, as we've been talking about, the pricing always gets in the way, that people just want cheaper. There was a study done years ago on the effect of what a shop like, I think it was Kmart, has to small town America, and because that's where all this sort of stuff happens. But the amount of money that one shop sucked out of the actual local industry decimated small towns. So rather than having the money bounce from gym to the post office to the butcher, to the small clothes store, and keep circulating around the town, it just flew straight out. So what you've got is a small area with a net negative effect on their income, and basically the town just slowly dies. So as a concept, large corporations poorly affect rural or smaller areas. But it's hard to come up with a model that would actually help keep that money in the area, because you've got to price it like cheap. Once you sort of get one person sort of living off the income, it's hard to beat the pricing of a $4 item, because people just can't make money on it. So yeah, from that perspective, I'm not a fan. From the hammer that they put to the structured system around taxis, I like it, but a lot of people were hurt by it. I just thought it was very interesting. Yeah, it was an interesting way of, they just opened and just said, hey, just deal with it.
And the complacency of the government and the taxi association that didn't maintain their standards. They thought they were too big to fail. Yeah, exactly. I think what will come out of this whole situation we're currently going through is a lot of people talking about they would want to buy local, continue to buy local, but after 3 months, similar to like the bushfire appeal, we never hear about that anymore. Will they continue to buy local, and then will price just go straight to the top of the list?
Always does. And I think it needs that does need to change. And it's just you'll continue to see an ever increasing poverty difference between the rich and the poor, until you start to get small communities of people working together to sort of pull. I know a lot of people sort of do work together, and you sort of see that groups or communities that do work together are able to pull community assets and sort of develop things that way, rather than everyone trying to work individually to get ahead. It's just nowhere near as effective. So, if you get a group of sort of 10 to 15 people working together, they can get a lot further than one person trying to work on themselves for 20 years. So they get more further in that 1 year than that other person does in that 20 years. So it needs to change, but I couldn't work out how to change it. No, I'm sure smarter people than me put time into it. But yeah, I think when things get bad enough, it will change. So, maybe this is the catalyst from it. Viva la revolution.
Hopefully. Any last words you want to add?
Yeah, we seem to have reached a new phase where businesses are starting to open up again. It's time to change the view on how you're going to approach that rollout, and how you're going to sort of pick up that market. Expect a smaller or a harder to navigate market, and what are you going to do to be at the forefront of people's mind in front of that? A rush to be the cheapest isn't always the best option.
Okay, I'll speak to you next week, Dar. See you later.
Thank you, Chris. Enjoy.